If you missed it yesterday on social media, Micah Beckstead put out a new profile picture, and he's wearing a BYU Letterman jacket. And obviously, it says in his bio on X, or AKA Twitter, it says running back at BYU. And that was a bit of a surprise, because if you paid attention to Micah Beckstead's high school career at Timpview High School, which is a stone's throw away from BYU, he ultimately committed to Utah State because BYU, I think, offered him. He was in the 2023 recruiting class, and that's years and years ago. But I have a faint memory of him having maybe a preferred walk-on offer from BYU, but ultimately spurning that opportunity to take a scholarship offer from Utah State. Well, he went on a mission the past 2 years and has returned home and decided, hey, I don't want to go that far from home. Speaking of going up to Logan, I want to play for BYU, and he'll be a walk-on with the Cougars. And it kind of answers a question I think was lingering in many of our minds with regards to the depth chart for BYU at running back. I'm not saying that Micah Beckstead is a home run hitter of a running back. In fact, if he were that, he'd have a whole lot more offers. He would have been more highly rated than the 80 he was rated as a 3-star prospect. That's like about as low you can go in terms of a 3-star prospect, according to 24/7 Sports. But you can't argue with what he produced at the high school level. And the hope is that, much like a Sione Moa, remember Sione was a walk-on from California who all he did was make plays in camp. And I think all of us, yours truly included, in the media, kept kind of looking at this, okay, this kid's, it's a cute story. He's making plays in practice. Let's see what it does on the field. And all of a sudden, Sione Moa is scoring touchdowns on the field. Like, oh, it did translate over. That's the fun part about this. So the hope is a guy like Micah Beckstead can be that type of a player that can make an impact for BYU. And his high school career kind of shows that, hey, BYU likes guys who can come in, who have got a lot of production, and they can obviously perform at a high level. His senior year, speaking of Beckstead, who was listed at 5'11", 205 pounds, 1,957 yards and 15 touchdowns as a senior. It's nearly 2,000 yards rushing. He had north of 3,500 yards for his entire high school career at Timpview and 28 touchdowns. Those are prolific numbers. And we talked not that long ago about another walk-on coming to BYU in Journee Tonga, who comes from California, where BYU's had a lot of success prying walk-on running backs out of, to obviously go on to great success. I think the poster child for that, and it's not the poster child, no, he is like the guy, it's Tyler Allgeier. Harvey Unga has a type that he looks for in his running backs, and apparently Micah Beckstead, he sees what he likes in this young man, and the hope is that Beckstead, even if he's coming home off of a mission, can get up to speed quick enough that he can offer, as I like to say, the best ability is availability, and that's the big question mark. LJ Martin is obviously the bell cow. He is going to be the guy for the BYU offense, much like he was last year, going into this fall for the BYU football program. He's the reigning offensive player of the year in the Big 12 for a reason. But behind him, you have to, and I don't care if it's Journee Tonga, Micah Beckstead, Sione Moa, Jovesa Damuni, Preston Rex, any one of them can have this opportunity to go and be that number 2. And they need to prove, as the number 2 back, that if and when LJ gets dinged up, needs a breather, whatever it is, that they can come in and the offensive production doesn't drop off a cliff like it did this past year for the BYU football program. They have to avoid that. And I thought, and I think many of you out there also thought, BYU needed to bring in a running back in the transfer portal. And I still probably would have liked to have seen them do that. But when you have a running back the caliber of LJ Martin, it's going to be hard to sell guys in the portal who more often than not are in the portal because they want more playing time, to sell them on a vision of coming to BYU and playing second fiddle behind a guy like LJ. So I think Micah Beckstead, the fact that he's a local product, he was ultra productive at the high school level. And if you look at his highlight reel from high school, he's not a burner. He's not a guy who had major breakaway speed, but he is a tough, hard-nosed physical runner, and provided time, development, and hopefully a good run of health. I think there's no reason to think that this is a young man that can't come in and be a nice addition for the BYU football program, and maybe down the line ends up becoming a starting caliber running back. You never can discount what these young men are capable of. I will always remember the Tyler Allgeier story. For those of you who don't know, Tyler came to BYU as a 2-star prospect who was looking for an opportunity to continue to play football. He was stocking shelves at Walmart early on in his time at BYU, while also making a position change. Remember, he moved from running back to linebacker and actually started a game against Boise State at linebacker, having made that move just months before because BYU needed that, and he obviously saw it as an opportunity to get on the field. Turn him around a couple years later. It was actually 1 year later. He ends up as BYU starting running back, and we all know the Tyler Allgeier story, what it turned into. He's now a bona fide NBA running back who, in many respects, has been underutilized during his time at the professional level. He is going to have an opportunity as a free agent finally to maybe cash into a higher level after, I think, being a really, really phenomenal piece for the Atlanta Falcons. And that's, if you're Micah Beckstead, why are you not looking at that and saying, I'm going to be that guy? And I'm sure Sione Moa was sold on that vision. I'm sure Journee Tonga sees that same thing as these guys who are probably under-recruited, have that chip on their shoulder. They're coming to BYU understanding that there are guys there like an LJ Martin who are born and bred four-star prospects, because that's what LJ was. LJ is kind of the antithesis of the Tyler Allgeier. But the nice part is BYU's proven they can have any of those guys succeed if they have the talent, the work ethic, and ultimately stay healthy. Yeah, it's a good bet to have a guy like this come in and see what you got in him. You kick the tires, to use that expression, and see what you got. I love local prospects. I love guys from the state of Utah who play for BYU because they seem to carry this, I don't know what you'd call it, an extra bit of pride, an extra chip on their shoulder to put on for their hometown team. And BYU's been really, really successful the last 2 years. I don't have to recount that for any of you guys. They're 23-4 over the past 2 years. And yes, it's been built upon having a punishing downhill rushing attack, none other than LJ Martin being the spearhead of that. But you need to have somebody. And like I said, whether it's Beckstead or whether it's Sione Moa or Jovesa, I don't care who it is. Somebody, please, for the life of me, step up and don't allow the production, like I said, to drop off a cliff the second that LJ Martin leaves the field. I know that Bear Bachmeier is capable of carrying the load, obviously, because he's got a nice running ability in his own right, and he runs with kind of the mentality of a running back or a fullback. That's why he wears the number 47. But you also have to think of his long-term health. So whoever it is, whether it is Micah Beckstead who joins the program here off of a mission or anybody else in that running back room, I want one of them, at least in spring ball, to emerge and show that they are capable of shouldering the load, whatever it may be, from LJ stepping off the field. Can they allow it to continue to have the success it needs to have to keep BYU's offense as potent as it can be? I hope they do, because if they do, BYU is going to be poised to make another run at the Big 12 title, to maybe playing the college football playoff. We talked with Brian Smith yesterday from Locked on the Portal. You guys probably heard that conversation if you're an everydayer. He is a believer in BYU. Well, guess what? You need to have the guys step up and deliver on the hype, whatever you want to call it, the guys like Brian Smith have. Brian, he's been very quick to downgrade the Big 12, but he is a believer in BYU's ability to kind of prop the Big 12 up. Let's hope that the Cougars can prove him and all of us right and show what they're capable of out there when it comes to chasing another Big 12 championship berth, hopefully hoisting that trophy and ultimately living their dream of playing for a national championship in the college football playoff. And I'm looking forward to it. So I look forward to seeing how Micah Beckstead develops, because it really, it is and was, I guess I could say, probably use the term was. It was a need for BYU, and I think they filled it with a diamond in the rough, as it were, and we'll see what Micah Beckstead ends up being for the BYU football program. All right. Long show, but as always, a fun show. I appreciate all of your support. You guys have been absolutely awesome. We round out the month of January. Typically, January is a month that seems to really kind of be very, very slow. It flew by for me for whatever reason, but we will do a postcast in the aftermath of Kansas and BYU tomorrow afternoon. It'll be probably early evening whenever that game wraps up. And then obviously we're off into the month of February. Do you know it's actually National Signing Day next Wednesday? Yeah, it snuck up on us, didn't it? But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about all the new additions coming into BYU, whether they're early enrollees from high school, return missionaries. We'll have that all covered for you, as we always do, because once again, we are your original daily podcast focused on all things BYU. And I will just say this as I always do. It's part of the sign off. It's tradition at this point. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen today. Go make your second listen. Our friends over the Locked On College Football or Locked On Big 12 channels, both doing a great job over there. Join the Locked On Cougars Everydayer Club, LockedOnCougars.supercast.com, and come back tomorrow and be an everydayer right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.